Well, good evening and welcome to another episode of Co-Creating the New Earth Together. I'm joined this evening by Victor Ong, who's going to tell us all about the blockchain and how we can use it to improve political accountability. So welcome, Victor.
Hi, Jack. Nice to meet you.
It's great to have you on.
Hey, my first time, so be gentle.
We'll be gentle with you, Victor.
Okay.
How did you first get it? Because I know your background is in aromatherapy. So how did you get involved with the blockchain?
Okay, actually, I can give you a bit of my background. I was in automotive electronics, designing software and hardware with a company doesn't exist anymore, Lucas Automotive. And of course, that was a lot of technical background I had. And then I retrained as an acupuncturist because the company went bust. So
yeah, okay, yeah.
And I retrained as an acupuncturist, and I became a full-time acupuncturist for the last 21, 22 years. And when the lockdown came, or the COVID stuff, I kind of like changed and shut down, retired really from acupuncture because I wasn't actually able to practice at that time, year 2000. So I then started to, even before that, I started looking at something called Belmont, which spawned the blockchain stuff. Belmont is means actually beautiful world. It's an old language that was generated by human beings. Esperanto, you might have heard of Esperanto. So from there on, even before we locked down, before I started working on the website. So the website is live, but it's very unfinished and probably will never be finished because it's about what we're doing now, how we can improve the world, Belmont, the beautiful world. If we can imagine it, we can create it. It's very similar to what you're saying, co-creating. And from there, in the last few years, 2015, I started being interested in blockchain, Ethereum, Bitcoin, because of my technical background. I was very fascinated with it. And I forgot about it for a while till when I was retired, like 2000 I retired, 2001, 2000, which is just last year, really. And so I started looking at what is this about? A lot of people, it's about cryptocurrency, which is an alternative type of money. But I was looking more of how we can use it as a tool to actually improve everything in the world, in our society. As tools go, you can use tools for bad things and good things. So I'm trying to promote the use of it to actually make a better world, a better mondo, effectively.
It's exciting. Now, a lot of people that will be watching this show, including myself, know absolutely nothing about blockchain.
Okay.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about what it actually is?
Okay, so blockchain is actually, it works on the internet. It's actually, but instead of being controlled, like, for example, Amazon is on the internet, but it's controlled by the Amazon company, Jeff Bezos or whatever his name is. Facebook is on the internet, but controlled by one person, whatever his name is, the guy who runs Facebook. Yeah. And then similarly, all the things like the government websites, everything on the internet is usually controlled by one entity, either shareholders or directors or governments, right? So the blockchain, what the blockchain does is it goes onto the internet, but it is designed so that it is controlled by ordinary people who join it, who join the blockchain. You join the blockchain, this is the details, but you join the blockchain, because every blockchain has a token or a coin, and you join the blockchain by having a wallet and downloading, buying some of the token and coins. Some of them are very cheap, some are very expensive, but you join it, you buy some of that, and you become part of the community. There are many blockchains. At the moment, I think there's more than 300 blockchains. So like Bitcoin is one of the blockchains, Ethereum is another one, and there are loads more other blockchains. And you can join it by getting a wallet and downloading it. Now, why would one do that? Because it's decentralized. It's not one organization or one person in charge. It means that it is very much the consensus of the users that changes the direction of the blockchain. So it becomes quite censorship resistant. Why is it resistant to censorship? Because with all these programs running on the internet, they are of different jurisdictions, and it's actually under different governments. It's geographically diverse, and it's also run on different computers as well. Some of them are powerful, some of them are, in fact, the latest blockchains they're trying to make will run on your mobile phone. That's the latest stuff. So by everybody running it in different countries, different governments, under different governments, it's not easy to censor. The weakest points of these blockchains are where you actually go onto it. To go onto it, you have to buy it, and to buy it, you first of all have to go through what I call a centralized entity, an exchange. Centralized means it's controlled
before we get into that, Victor, can you just tell us what it actually is? Is it a protocol for transferring packets of information? Is that what it is?
Yes. The new blockchains, you can have what we call smart contracts. So it's not just about transferring cryptocurrency, but it's also, you can have decentralized, the key here, keyword, decentralized social media. So instead of like Facebook being controlled by one person who decides what is fact and what is not, blockchain.
Yeah, but what exactly is it? Is it a protocol?
Yeah, it's a protocol on the internet. So you need a computer to get at it, you know. So it's actually something that you connect up with your computer. And once you connect it up, you can actually start to participate in the organization of that blockchain by following certain requirements. And once you start part of that, it's hard to censor by any other big organization. For example, I uploaded a YouTube video, a couple of them, and well, I've uploaded quite a few, but these two were immediately blocked by YouTube because it did not meet community rules, etc., etc., etc. So I put it on Odyssey. Odyssey runs on a blockchain called Library. And by running on that, nobody actually will censor it, can censor it. So Odyssey is one of them. BitChute, you might have heard of. There are loads now of others. DShoot, DTube. Yeah, I can go on forever, but I use Odyssey because it seems less hyped up than others. Some of the others feel a bit hyped up. And so I've got some, censored stuff from YouTube on there, and can happily stay there. People can follow me on there. So that's what one of the uses of blockchain is, have a decentralized video sharing platform. I talked about social connections as well, social media. I think Lens protocols, will do social media. Money is important as well, of course, because once I was trying to buy a few coins to get involved in the blockchain, and my bank stopped my internet access because of that, because it didn't like me going into blockchains and cryptos, basically. And so
the banks don't like crypto because it threatens the whole modus operandi, doesn't it?
Absolutely, they're scared. And so they blocked me. So I have to find different banks, different ways. There's actually banks called fintech banks which actually are a lot softer on blockchain than the
Mm.
ordinary high street banks. So you can go through that. But yes, okay. So what happens with that? If you had, say, for example, Bitcoin. A lot of people have heard of Bitcoin, so I'll use that. It's a cryptocurrency. If you use Bitcoin to pay somebody by using your computer, going onto the blockchain and sending money to their wallet from your wallet, nobody can block it. The banks can't block it. The government can't block it. It'll go straight to their wallet. So that is another reuse of blockchain, is to avoid currency blockages, money block. You think it's your money, but is it really? They can come and say you can't get at your money. Or in Canada, they froze some accounts. Then that's another story. But they froze people's account because they were doing something the government didn't like. So
yeah, well, the governments, I think they've although they've been against crypto for a long time, many years, they're now starting to come up with this idea of bringing out their own crypto and to make it a programmable currency, which means that they can control what you do with it.
Yes.
That sounds very frightening.
Best to avoid it, but at least the first few years, just see how it goes. If it comes out, avoid it. And because if you go into it, you might find yourself not really owning anything that's on there.
That's what they want.
Can I go on to the next thing that the blockchain could be used for?
Certainly.
Which the last 2 years have shown maybe we really do need. And that is actually news dissemination. Because the news, MSM, they call it, mainstream media, is very highly controlled by the editors, by the shareholders, and hence through connection with the government. So government control what we can see. So I don't know how, I'm trying to write a sort of a balance between being banned things that I want to, because
let's try not to get banned today.
So what happens is there's a blockchain called Chainlink. Chainlink uses little pickup points called oracles all over the world. These oracles come into Chainlink, and through consensus, it will give you information. One of the things Chainlink's being used for now is the currency values of the world, either cryptocurrency or main currencies. And then so these, yet again, because they are through consensus from different, what we call oracles, it's distributed all over the world, so not controllable by one particular entity or government. It means that we get information that is undoctored, if you want. So by doing that, what will happen if we use Chainlink type of blockchain to transfer news to ordinary people, to us? It means it won't be censored. It can't be censored because it's on the blockchain. It's being used. It's a program that does the job. You can't sack somebody or put somebody in jail because the computer controls and continues to run. And you can't just get at one computer because this is distributed computers. They call nodes that covers the whole world, different jurisdictions. So the government just cannot go and sort of switch off one computer because that won't have any effect because the others will still continue to work. So that is the key to the blockchain. Is it's so resistant to, it's not totally proof. Let me put it that way, because there's been certain things that's happened that I can go into if it's of interest, but definitely very, very resistant to censorship and control by centralized bodies. And in fact, the groups that form these blockchains, they call themselves DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. It's funny because DAO is also in the East, it's a very spiritual term, actually, the DAO. But it's interesting that also is what the groups are doing, so that people who can make decisions, who can vote on these things, actually are people who are on it to use it, not some centralized body that can, come and shut you down or anything like that. So you can become part of any of these blockchains, and it's worth investigating a few of them. And And maybe if you're very interested, go on them.
Yeah, I think people like the idea of it being decentralized.
Mm,
We're trying to pull away from this whole centralized globalist system.
yeah.
And the idea of things being decentralized, being controlled at the grassroots,
By us, yeah.
it
The users.
empowers people, doesn't it? Instead of
Mm.
empowering governments and big corporations, it empowers people and small communities.
Absolutely. And it'll be brilliant if more and more, in fact, some communities have already adopted blockchain to run their system. You know, it takes a bit of thinking because people who are in charge of these small communities will feel a bit miffed initially that the control, the power is going to the people. But that's what is the fairest, I think, is the fairest is that people who use the platform, the community and all that are actually those who have the power to control it rather than one or two people who, I don't know, who are leaders or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Same with allotments. I mean, because I have an allotment plot as well. And oh, the trouble and the politics that goes on there is incredible. I mean, it'll be brilliant if it was controlled by blockchain.
Wow.
And I only brought that up because I've heard one of your videos where you had some issues. So let's leave it at that, yes.
How do you see the future of Bitcoin and Ethereum?
Okay, Bitcoin and Ethereum are actual currencies that's used on the blockchains. Chainlink I mentioned for news dissemination, and I've also mentioned others that can be used for social media, Lens protocol, and of course, politics. I'll come to that later. You know, you touched on it because there's an amazing thing you can use blockchain for that will help us improve democracy. Would you believe it? Improve democracy. Anyway, we'll come to that. Your question is, how do you think the cryptos will, I mean, there'll be big fights. The banks, the British financial institutions, the American ones, all over the world, European ones, will try and shut down the blockchain and the cryptocurrencies, simply because they're scared. They're scared of what's going to happen. But I believe that if a lot of us want to actually get that freedom of, you know, control over our own resources, whatever it is, whether it be money or whatever, it'll happen. So there'll be almighty fights going on, but because blockchain is so already. Have I told you the story about how the first blockchain appeared?
No, carry on, please.
Okay, that's interesting only because it's quite intriguing. Well, initially, there's a guy who's supposed to be called Satoshi Nakamoto, invented a blockchain with some of his colleagues, and it's called the Bitcoin blockchain, which you've heard of. And after a few years working on it, he disappeared. He disappeared, totally disappeared. And his colleagues continued running it, and new people joined in to run it, to develop the program, the devs, they call it, programmers, people who are technical. And so this blockchain continues. It still continues now. We still got Bitcoin, but nobody knows what's happened to Satoshi Nakamoto, if that's his real name even. Some people have said, that's me, but nobody's been able to totally prove that they are Satoshi. So that's a fascinating story about how it appeared. And since it appeared 2010-ish, 2009, the government and everybody have tried to sort of control it, throttle it, whatever. But so far it's resisted all attempts. So it's good news. So far it has been able to run its own course. And these are a program called Bitcoin program that runs on several distributed computers all over the world. I think it's about 20,000, like they say, but because of its nature, you can't count the number of nodes, they call it, the number of computers that run that program. So it's very hard to shut it down.
Mm.
So that's the future. Is we hope more and more people get onto the blockchain, do their own nodes, and the more nodes you have, the more censorship resistant, less control by centralized bodies as well. So
there was a big crash, wasn't there, a few months ago? What caused that?
Which one would that have been?
The Bitcoin, this crash, and it's still right down. Right down.
Yeah, in the last few months, it's really dropped the value. I think it went up to the peak of about 50K, 50,000 for one Bitcoin, $50,000. They're all talking dollars. And then at the moment, I think it's down to $17,000. So the drop is massive. So
huge.
I recommend people not to use this as an investment to make money, because you join it because you believe in what they're doing, in the policies, the ethics, and the censorship resistance, not because of. Yeah.
So why do you think it went down, Victor?
It went down because at the moment it's still very connected with what they call the macros. The macros are stocks and shares. It's still very connected with stocks and shares. So the stocks and shares have dropped like mad. So Bitcoin has also dropped. There are other contributing factors, because the American government has tried to shut down a special protocol called Tornado Cash, and they've managed to actually bring on board all the centralized entry points. Entry point into blockchain is through centralized bodies. So that's the weak point that manages to stop people from getting on. And so because of the news that, it's not that sensitive resistant. Yes, it's not the actual front end of it, which is the where people interface from ordinary currency into cryptocurrency. It's still centralized, unfortunately. So one day maybe they'll find a way of decentralizing that as well.
Elon Musk dumped a lot of it, didn't he?
Yeah, he's a big talk. He talks a lot about. I mean, like when I first started, it all started mining Dogecoin. You've heard of mining it, which is to produce it by using your computer. Anyway, because I was technical, just for fun, produce some Dogecoin. I forgot about it. And later on, in fact, 2 years ago, Elon Musk started talking about Dogecoin, and suddenly the value of Dogecoin shot up, which it pleases me, but I didn't have that many. So yeah, so Elon Musk is into Dogecoin. He's sold a lot of Bitcoin, so he's into it very much. Yeah.
And then earlier this year, he sold a lot, didn't he?
He got rid of a lot of Bitcoin to get some liquidity. I think he just needs some cash, so he sold some. But he sold it at the wrong time, and Bitcoin was low in value. As you can imagine, if you sell it at a high point, you can make a profit. But then you have to know it's not that easy. And
a lot of people seem to think that he caused it to crash by selling so much at once.
Yeah, well, it could well be. That's very possible. You have to sell. Yeah, they call them whales. Whales has a lot of cryptocurrency in their account. It could be Bitcoin, it could be Ethereum, whatever, and they can actually affect the market by selling and buying lots of things. But other things can also affect it as well. Yeah, but certainly, if a few whales get together, they can actually cause the markets to change in the way that they might want to. So, but fortunately, this was only Elon Musk. But if the other whales had followed him, we might have seen bigger changes. Very volatile. All cryptos are very volatile. So whatever you see here, as they say, is not financial advice.
Absolutely, no. We don't give it back. We don't give it financial advice on this channel.
Absolutely.
We're just having a chat.
Yes. Maybe just for entertainment. Yes.
Absolutely. So how can blockchain be used to make politics more accountable?
Yes, that's my hobby horses. I'm very interested in that, because once we start connecting with blockchain, it can control our finances and how it goes using escrow methods. You've all heard of escrow, where sort of either money or cryptos or whatever is held until it can be released. And the blockchain can control how it's released. So imagine that, say, we all the voters, on the electoral register, want to make our own personal manifestos. What is personal manifesto? It's just what you would like the government to do. And if these are all fed into the blockchain can actually find a kind of consensus average of each of these issues that we might want to do, like health, for example, transport, anything that we have to feel strongly about. So these personal manifestos can exist on the blockchain. And if a government wants to get into power, I'm talking more to do with the British politics, because I know a little bit more of that than, say, American one. And so what happens is if a party, if you want to get into power, they will produce their own manifesto. So there'll be, say, hopefully there'll be more than two that produce their own personal manifesto. And say 4 or 5 of them, maybe, whatever. Anyway, the one that gets into government, would be the one that has the manifesto that matches closest to the people's personal manifestos averaged out. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Can you explain it a bit? Go into it a bit deeper.
Yeah.
Explain it another way for the slow ones at the back, like me.
Let's have a look. Yeah. So at the moment, we vote in a party, and for the next, is it 5 years they're in power?
I think so, yeah.
For the next 5 years, they can do anything they want, really.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Because we've seen the manifesto, we say, that's why we hear about broken promises and all that with politicians, because they don't need to do what they said in the manifesto, they can do something opposite or whatever. So how do we hold them to to our requirements, if you want? We pay them through our taxes, they get paid. So how do we hold them to it? Like in companies, they will have targets to meet, the company targets. How do we get politicians to move towards the target of the People's Manifesto, the average of it? And this is where I call it in the blockchain. The blockchain will hold all our taxes that is going to go towards the personal remuneration of the politicians in power. And it will actually, the closer they can get to our manifesto, the average of the electoral registered people, the more they will get in terms of, obviously they get a living wage, but on top of that, their bonuses will depend how closely they can match us. And the blockchain will control the money that goes to their personal accounts through holding the money in escrow. And anybody who wants to donate towards the party will have to actually donate to the escrow as well, which will then hold that whatever, cash or whatever. And then so that will start to control the politicians towards what we want. And this manifesto will be taken a snapshot of it, say every month or every 2 months, so that how the politicians are doing in during the 2-month gap will actually control how much they get. So at the moment, if somebody donates money to the party, X party, they get it. There's no control on it. But through this blockchain control escrow system, it will actually control what they can do once they're in power. And in fact, if they diverge enough from the people's wants, the people's consensus, the people's manifesto, if it diverges too much, it will trigger a general election. So not only do they get financially punished for not following what we want as a people, but they also get flipped to another party who might have a manifesto that actually is closer. So that's the thing that I'm so excited about, which is, there will be a lot less corruption, because, and like in companies, people's money in companies go to the ones who closest match the company's requirements. And here, the people who will be closest to our manifesto, our personal manifesto that we load onto the blockchain, the more likely that they will stay in power and the more bonuses they will get. So that's a sort of a motivation for them to do what we would like rather than whatever they want to, as they are doing now.
Well, that's interesting, yeah.
Mm.
In my book, Love Not Fear, I actually wrote, I made a very different suggestion as to how we could make politicians accountable, because I didn't know anything at all about blockchain then.
Right.
And I suggested we use chip and pin technology. Because at the moment, as you say, we get a token vote every 5 years. And after that, the politicians can go off and do whatever the heck they want.
Absolutely.
And we've got no way of reining them back in. Now, my idea was to let everybody in the country who wanted to vote in every debate in the House of Parliament using a chip and pin system.
Like an identity.
Yeah, and to use, the same as you do, the same way you draw money at the bank. You put your card into a card reader.
Yeah.
Prove it and put in a PIN number to prove it's you. Yeah. And my idea was that we get away with parties altogether. Every politician would have a number of votes equal to the number of people in his constituency who are of voting age, less the number of people who vote for themselves in that particular debate.
Right.
Yeah. So if I've got, for round figures, if I've got 50,000 people in my constituency, and 10,000 of them are interested in that particular subject and vote for themselves, I get to vote for the other 40,000. Yeah? Can you see any way of integrating that with blockchain?
Absolutely. It's the key control point, the escrow, as I call it, can also be controlled by, the votes. You can actually have sort of every 2 months when there's a snapshot taken of the manifestos, how close they can also be included in that, sort of how close they are through the voting system that you mentioned as well. So as the votes show the politician is doing well, it can be that they get more. I mean, I say escrow holds the money, but it could be other benefits as well that they have. They could improve the quality of their car or whatever, or flat or whatever. So it could affect that. So yeah. I mean, it takes. I mean, this idea and your idea needs to come in and be tested. And I have an idea how it can be tested as well, but I'll come to that once you're ready to.
Yeah, can we get on to that?
Yes.
How do we do that? How do we test it?
Well, at the moment, there's something called the meta-universe. Meta-universe is created by blockchain through virtual reality. And so this virtual real world can be used as a simulation of what it's going to do. So, for example, say if we're going to simulate the voting system and the parliamentary system and all that, we can put that onto the blockchain, onto the metaverse, like it is a real place. And we can then get whoever wants to participate in it to go in as the voters, on the electoral register. They can go in there. And also, if parties are involved, I'm thinking in terms of parties rather than one politician, because I'm thinking you need like the health minister and this minister and that minister to make up enough people in that party to be able to run the wheels or the cogs of the country. So I'm thinking what can happen is that we will then try it out first in this alternative virtual reality universe. And only if it works to the satisfaction of the voters, to the people who are, voting, then it can be, you can pull the trigger and make it become real. So that's what I'm thinking. It can be actually simulated first to see how well it works and be changed. If something needs adjusting, it can be adjusted by the people's votes again, by our consensus of what we want changing in that system, so that it can run in a virtual reality before it becomes real. So we can see how it works, basically.
Do you have any ideas as to how we could actually get the politicians to give up some of their power and let this idea, or either of our ideas, come in?
Yeah.
Because it would mean them giving up their power. They're not going to want to do that, are they?
Absolutely. I mean, I want to go back in history. My history is bad, but I got enough history to bring it in. Think Henry VIII. He's a well-known figure. Henry VIII. We all know him, at least in Britain we do. And he, in the past, him and his like, have the power to off with their heads if people don't agree with him. Mm-hmm. And similarly, right up till probably the Magna Carta, all the kings had that above the law status, and they can do what they want. Why did it change? And I believe it changed because, first of all, starting from the people who are the population, the voters now, but at that time probably there were not enough voters, wanted it. So that's the key to it. When people know that they can have a better system, better world, if you want, and they look at it, it suddenly builds up a pressure that even despotic leaders cannot resist. But it depends on us, on the people wanting it. Mm. And I believe that if people start to see this system where the politicians are every 2 months are assessed and have to obey what we want, if enough of us want it, it'll suddenly become reality. So it's just like, it's just like what happened from the past to now will happen if enough of us want this better system of governance. That's my belief. And I believe that that's how history brought us to where we are now, to a certain level of democracy. Not perfect yet, but we have some. Yeah.
I do hope you're right, Victor. I really do.
So yeah, everybody who listened to this, join us. I'm going to do some more videos on how blockchain and governance can work. I'm waiting for somebody to actually, a videographer, to come along. I've got a name in my mind, but when that happens, then hopefully I'll be able to send you the links and you can sort of have a look at it.
Sounds good, yeah.
Pass it on. And so the more of us, I have already given this talk to Stanton Park in Stafford. I'm hoping to do the same in Burntwood, because I think the more people hear about it, very few people will say, oh, I don't want that style. I want the style that is now, where the politician can do what they want in the next 5 years. I said, I'm sure most people will want it in the way that we have more power over the politicians. Mm. And the more we want it, the more it's likely to happen. Yeah.
The reason I want to get rid of parties is because it's very much a divide and conquer idea, isn't it? I always see both parties, and there's a saying that both wings belong to the same bird. That they only pretend to be different parties to divide us. And that's the way I see it. I say in my book that political parties are like trade unions that politicians join, so they can gang up against the people.
Yeah, certainly it's not ideal having the Conservative, the Labour, the Lib Dem, whatever, the way I see it, how it would work in the future is that we won't have names for these groups of people, like the ones who, like the groups of people that contain the health secretary, the etc., the transport secretary, etc. So what I'm seeing is that these won't be conservative or labor they will have different names. Maybe they will have names like the Butterfly Party or the Party of Utopia or whatever. I'm just guessing. Okay.
Yeah. But as long as we've got parties, it's just going to split the people against each other. Yeah.
What I'm thinking is that as we have groups of people that is having to follow our manifesto, if they say for any reason go too far away from what we would like, say during the snapshots, it'd be good if we have another team of people that can come in. So we can call it teams, we can call it groups, we can call it organizations, maybe teams of DAOs even. And so I'm thinking that would be good if we can swap them if they get too far away from what people want, And it's just an initial thoughts. So maybe in the future there won't be a party, maybe just individuals. Say if our transport sort of decisions are not as people wanted, maybe just one person that's in charge of transport will be flipped over, and another who's waiting. Hopefully there'll be a lot of queues of people want to work there, because if you meet the people's manifesto, you're going to get a lot of rewards through the escrow system. So that'll be like, I want to do it because I want to do what the people want. Would be how they will be thinking. Hopefully, that's my.
Can you say a little bit more about this word escrow? What does it mean?
Yeah, escrow is a funny thing. It say if you are selling some goods, say you want to sell a bag of grain, and the other party who wants to buy it is not able to immediately be face-to-face and give you the money. What the escrow system would do would be to be an independent organization, which in this case would be the blockchain, because it's independent, because there's a program running it that holds the escrow. Will take the grain, the bag of grain, and will also take the money from the buyer, and only if both of them have come in to the escrow bag, if you want, the escrow area, then he will release the grain to the buyer, release the money to the person who's selling the grain. So that's escrow, basically is holding items, monies, things of value until certain requirements are met. In this case, the requirement was the money has come in and the goods have come in, so they can now exchange. And with the escrow system, with the political things, it's like the more that you meet the requirements of the people, the more likely the escrow will release money into their personal account. These are personal accounts rather than money that's used to run transport systems or whatever. It's sort of a bonus that they will forego if they don't meet the people's requirements. Yeah.
So when you buy a house, for instance, you pay the money to the solicitor.
Right.
And the solicitor keeps it in a holding account.
Yeah.
Is it like that?
Absolutely. And the solicitors keep the keys and the money until all the paperwork and things are sorted out. Then you get the keys to your house, and the seller will get the money. So that's it. Absolutely. That's spot on.
Okay.
So this escrow system, instead of being controlled by a solicitor, by a centralized body, would be controlled by a program in the blockchain that will actually see the matches between the actions of the governing group and what the people really want. So that's
who would set it up?
Well, initially, what will happen, initially we start off with fairly centralized system that'll have to set it up. But the centralized system that set it up will actually employ devs, they call them programmers, and will actually set it up. But how are they set up? By the people voting for it. So even initially, you need to set up some form of a system, maybe a chip and pin system that will determine that this person has the vote. And by voting for what percentage of the escrow should be released, for what percentage of match you get, will be done by people who are particularly voters who are interested in it, not by the governing body, but by the voters. So we have to take the responsibility to set it up properly, how we would like it.
In my book, I take a rather pessimistic view of being able to change the system. In fact, I say that we're not going to be able to change the system. It's too corrupt and too ingrained. But what we can do is to set up a grassroots alternative system. And the more people that come on board with that, over time, the established system could be made obsolete.
Yes, absolutely. My similar thought in parallel was that perhaps, we start off with maybe parish councils adopting it. And it's happening in some places in America, believe it or not. And I think Sweden as well. And so when the parish council is successful, people like the system, they will want it for their county council, borough councils, and then work up. And then eventually they'll say, we want our main government to be working on the same system. So yes, that's a good way of graduating up to the general election type of level from local. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I do recommend that anybody who's interested can start looking into it. Blockchain needs to become user-friendly. At the moment, it's produced by geeks, and it's very hard to understand or use. It's like when internet first appeared, nobody could use it. Well, now everybody's got the phone tapping onto the internet or the laptop. So it was made easier as time will. And the same, I believe, will happen to blockchain. But people have to push it through wanting it to do better news for them, better social media with less censorship, and ultimately better governance as well. The more people want it, the more it's going to happen. It's just going to be driven into being, into be manifested through us, through the people wanting it. Yeah, that's my belief. So yeah, it's easy to be pessimistic initially because of what has happened. But I think the last 2 years, I won't say the word, but the last 2 years has made people realize how dysfunctional maybe some of our systems are.
Absolutely, totally.
And as people wake up to this, they will say, what else can we have? And I want to then, with the help of yourself and anybody who wants a better world, to see that, yes, we can have it. What about doing this? What about doing that? I'm not a clever guy, so clever people can probably think of even more fascinating ways of, our world improving through our systems improve. The world itself, the planet is beautiful. We want to improve what man does on it.
So if you're watching this on YouTube, please do share it, and let's help us all help us to get the word out.
Yeah, we need that. We need more people to come on board and say, we want this, we want this. And if you are in charge of little groups like parish councils or things, try it out. It's not easy at the moment because we are right at the frontier of bleeding edge of all this stuff. So, but if you have a few technical people within your group, you can start to experiment. Because I'm experimenting with tokens and things already. So, I'm thinking of Belmont token because that's the name of the whole improving the beautiful world, as it were. Yeah. So
please do send the link to this video to your parish councillors, and everyone you know.
Your MPs, you know, some
Your
MPs will
MPs as
love
well.
it.
Yeah,
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 because
yeah.
not all MPs are corrupt.
Well, no.
Yeah,
And to some of the people that are running the smaller parties too. I mean,
yes.
it's probably we need one of them to pick this up and run with it.
Mm, yes.
So, Victor, in the time we've got left, do you want to tell us a little bit about Belmondo?
Yeah, sure. I thought of Belmondo before the lockdown. I was already thinking. My mind is a way of from engineers' mind, how to improve things all the time. So I'm thinking, how do we improve the world, how we are? So Belmondo starts off with looking at how things are not quite right and what needs to change. I mean, one of the biggest things is people must want to be in a better world. They're so involved with day-to-day things, and the news is pumping out all this rubbish. So I want people to be able to step aside and say, I want a better world. How would I like it to be better? And Belmont is hopefully make people think about that, and therefore start to have a sort of, I call it a push, a pressure towards an improving world as more and more people are involved in it. So Belmondo does talk a lot about money, because at the moment, money is almost a religion. To say an alien comes to the planet and looks at these great big buildings that are around, and they say, oh, that must be to do with the religion. Who owns it? Well, banks own these, insurance companies, financial institutions. These are owned by, you know, these big. So we are actually accepting, because our interest or our devotion to religion has gone down as decades go by. We are actually starting to accept, which I hope we can reverse, that money is the measure of our success and our happiness, which is not. It's not at all. If you lack money, yes, you don't have enough to pay your rent. That's another point about Belmont. What I would like Belmont, what people to be, is that at the moment we have to work hard to earn money to eat and to have a shelter overhead. My utopian idea is that in the future, that will be our right. Our right will be to be able to eat and to be able to have shelter. And what we do about that is our creation of a better world. We will spend our energy creating better worlds. Okay, we still have to do the sewers and this and yet growing, but you know, we will no longer spend our time trying to just pay the rent, like a lot of people seem at the moment, unfortunately, seem to have to spend time working for, or to pay the debts off if you've got a mortgage, things like that. So,
Well, I'd like to see is people helping each other peer to peer.
that's
It's being
important.
more generous. Instead of living in fear and meanness, why can't we live in love and generosity?
Love, not fear. Yeah, absolutely.
It would change everything.
Yeah. People on the ground, grassroots, are very kind, I find, like my neighbors and things, you know, can't do enough to help. And we need to expand it so that we do, you know, do that for the whole planet. And I think it'll be good as well if the politicians start to, you know, starting from the top, we need what they call role models. So if we see politicians being nasty, we think it's okay to be nasty and to be money grabbing. But if this governance systems comes in, then the politicians will have to lead by example of being keen on meeting the people's needs. Yes, yeah, absolutely. So yeah.
I mean, people say that meanness is the human nature, but I don't believe that. I've never believed that.
No.
People are naturally generous and loving people. What makes people mean and fearful is the system that we live in.
Absolutely.
It's not our natural way.
Yeah, by making us, you know, accumulate money to be able to eat or buy a house or something like that, yeah, it's because it's the basic of how we can survive. We will maybe start to think that it's okay to do this, that, and the other, which in your words might be to be mean to your neighbor or to somebody else. Yeah. So if we already have what we need and we just can improve and make things better, we can be very kind to each other. Maybe, like have communities that meet, and especially if our governance is not to do with who has the most money, or or in some cases, like who was there first, the original sort of genesis. Then we will certainly, absolutely be more kind to each other, and explore kindness.
If we could stop thinking, how much can I get, and started thinking, how much can I give, everything changes overnight.
Yes, I mean, like now, if you sort of, perhaps even listening to us, to me, people will say, what's his angle? What does he want out of it? I want a more beautiful world out of it, like everybody does.
What a new world.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Fifth dimension of consciousness.
Yeah, I'm going to add on Belmont about how our minds can really be powerful enough to change. I started off with Henry VIII and that sort of despotic rulers. It can change. We just need to want it.
Yeah, I say in the book that we were born into a game we did not devise. And that game is based on what in my previous book I called the web of lies. Our parents tell us the same lies their parents told them. The schools reinforce those lies. And we believe these lies. And the television reinforces these lies. And we think that's the real world, but it's not. It's a fake reality based on a web of lies. We can never win that game that we were born into based on a web of lies. All we can do is to stop playing that game and devise a fairer one based on truth and love and generosity.
And the big thing is, as well as first principles. When I was learning science, first principles was very important. So this web of lies need to be disconstructed. That means going back to the beginning. For example, why did money come about? To make trading a bit easier. Instead of having to carry half a pig and change it for bags of grain, we use money. And so it needs to go back to that as a tool rather than as a god. So I don't know if that's supposed to say that as a something to worship, or as a tool.
But even religion is based, well, not all religions, obviously, but the three Abrahamic religions certainly are based on fear. If you don't do what we, the priesthood, tell you to do, then you're going to burn in hell when you die. I mean, what a horrible, sick mind thought that one up.
Yeah.
Just to keep people in fear.
Yeah, and now the priests seem to be, taken over by, say, shareholders or company directors who say, yes, we will stop you from hearing certain news because it's not good for our profits. We need to let go of that money motivation that disrupts people's freedom and everything else.
So if people want to talk and find out more about this, Victor, can they contact you?
Yeah. If you put my Belmondo website on, they can go and there and follow me on there, and I will eventually do what do you call it, like a regular newsletter type of thing.
It's
just if I write something new, it comes up. Belmondo link would be great if you put that on.
I'll put that on, yes, definitely.
And actually, I've got another website where you can actually fill in forms to contact me. And it's my old acupuncture website. I've got a lot of stuff about health on there as well, if you want to read about that. And that's called acupunctureforlife.co.uk. So acupuncture for life is one word, acupunctureforlife.co.uk. And if you go on there, you actually fill in a form and the emails will come to me.
I'll put I'll put all the links below in the description.
Yeah, and I'll pass you the sort of slides I did for my last talk, so you can see what you think is sort of right to put on, what's relevant.
Well, thank you very much for coming on, Victor.
Thank you for inviting me, Jack. Nice to talk to you.
And you.
Yeah.
Hope you'll come on again at a later date and talk some more.
Absolutely. Definitely. Make a date fairly soon. Maybe.
Namaste.
Right. So that's the end.